Okay, so now let's talk about program events. So if we reopen the first curve folder project we created, you see here there's an option called program events. If you click on it, you will have this window appearing. So this window is very important for many reasons. First, you have the fast move speed. So fast move speed are the speed that will be selected for the approach and retract motion. So in this case, it's a meter per second, and the actual program is ran at 50 millimeter per second. So that's kind of fast. So potentially dropping that down to a meter per second is enough. Here you have on the left a column of information that is grayed out. This is important when you're doing stuff like milling, 3D printing, or other. So we will cover that when we talk about 3D printing and milling. So for this section here, this is not available, not useful. Here you have the set rounding. So set rounding has different names depending on what robot brand you're using. So let's say for UR it's blending, for ABB it's zone data, for KUKA and Fabric I think it's continuous motion or constant motion, something like that. So it will have different naming depending on what robot brand you're using, but it's pretty much the same. It's always like how let's say for the smoothness of the motion, pretty much. So for now I'll keep it at 1. So 1 is with smoothing and -1 is without smoothing, and then you can enter a bigger or smaller value here depending on how smooth you want it. Depending if your robot brand uses millimeters, you enter it in millimeter, and even if it's not written here, if your robot brand uses percentage, you can simply enter a percentage here. So it's the case, let's say for Fanuc, they want to have a percentage and not a measurement. Then you can activate one of those 7 options. So either adding a program event on program start, on path approach, on path start, on action, so on each point, on path finish, on path retract, or on program finish. So those are different steps where you can call either an init, an activation of an IO, an activation of a subroutine, or something like that. So this will be taken and sent directly to the robot controller afterwards. I'm going to cancel that for a second. I'm just going to right click here, show instruction for this one here. And then, so I'm going to show you here that we have pretty much nothing. So we have our smooth one, speed 1000 millimeter, blah, blah, blah. And then we have our path. So step, cool. By the way, if you right click and show instruction, RoboDK will kind of raise a flag in the background, knowing that you potentially did some changes to that program here, meaning that if you re-update again, it will create a new curve corner program here. The reason for that is that if you ever did some modification manually, we're going to talk about how to modify those manually later, you won't, let's say, overwrite the program. You can change that to overwrite anyway in CAM. I will show. Oh yeah, never overwrite edited program generated from a CAM project. So if you were to uncheck that, it would overwrite it. But I personally don't think it's a good idea. But if you feel like it's a good idea, you can always uncheck that option. If I go to program event, and here I have 2 little macros that are there just to look good, in fact. So I would like to activate my gun when I'm gonna start the path, and I would like to deactivate it when I'm gonna go path finish. So 2 options here. I can either click here and go select program and then gun on, click OK, or I can enter the name directly here, gun off, like that. If I click OK and update, if I now open this one here, so show instruction, you will see that we now have set speed. Oops, program event, I didn't change that. I wanted to have 100. Update, right click, show instruction. You will have the smooth 100 meters, then the first motion. Then we're gonna move here, And then we're going to start and call gun on and run our program. So if I run that here, you will see those little dots appearing along the path showing that we are indeed following the path the way we want it, and that our gun on, gun off subroutine will appear here. So those will be translated and transferred directly to the real robot at the end. So if you had a gun on, gun off subroutine programmed in your controller, you could kind of call those and then just call them from RoboDK. You don't need to like reprogram them in this environment or anywhere else. You just program them once in your controller. Keep those as a separated subroutine, and you're just calling whenever you want. So if you had, let's say, I don't know, so you're doing 3D printing and you need to activate, or you need to go, I don't know, do a purge of your nozzle before starting the path, you could have here in program event, in program start, you could have, let's say, purge nozzle. So it would go purge the nozzle and then start the actual program. So that's it for this one. Here, this one, I'm gonna just rename this one here for wave or curve wave. Here, so that we have a different name. Delete this one, delete this one. By the way, if you have the little, let's say, arrows or loading arrows, that means that there was some modification or that the program would disappear since the last update. So what you can do is just right click and update programs. It will update both programs, and then you can run them. Now that we added our program events, what we can do is right click here, more option, copy program events here, right click, more option, paste program events here, right click, update program, and now program events will be in both. Those macros are a bit buggy, so like I said, they are just there for the eyes. If you don't right click and then show instructions, sometimes they won't trigger for some reason. So you just right click, show instruction, right click, show instruction, and then if you were to run this one here, you will have the little white lines everywhere. So that's it for this one. Let's just real quick do the other two ones here. So I have other stuff to tell you. So I'm going to go utilities and curve follow project. I'm going to rename this one here, let's say curve lines. That I'm going to select curve, select this curve here, so you see from 1 to 2. By the way, I'm going to show you something that we don't necessarily want to use there, but it's here, so it's important to know. So if you want to do, let's say if you're doing some polishing and you need to go in one direction and then go back on the same line, instead of having to duplicate the line, what you can do is right click, select again, and then select reversed potentially. So this way you'll go from 1 to 2 to 3 here. So go back and forth just like that. So that works. So this is something you can do here. In this case, I don't need to. If you need to reset the selection, you can click reset selection here, or you can right click in an empty section of your window and click reset selection. So I'm going to select this one here and then select this other one here. So 1 to 2, 3 to 4. Click done. I'm going to copy here all the options. So more option, copy settings, right click, more option, paste settings. By the way, you could paste settings on multiple curve follow project at a time. So just like that. So here you can see that as we have two, even if we selected that in the same path here, as we have two separated lines, it will create an approach and a retract motion at the end, or in the transition here. Sorry, in the transition here. So if you potentially you want that, that's fine. If you don't want that, you can always double click the curve follow project and click here approach and retract each curve. If you uncheck that, it will simply create a straight line between those two here. So depending on what you want and what you need, that can be useful. So let's right click and then update program. So now I have a little curve. I can show instruction here, run that here, and the little dots will appear. Like I said, if you don't right click show instruction, the little dots will appear sometimes they won't. It's kind of unpredictable. But like I said, we didn't put too much effort like finding out why it's that. It's really just for the eyes here that has no impact on the real robot programming. And by the way, if you want to have those are modifiable or customizable, if I can say so. You can change the size of the dots, you can change the color, and you can find them also in open. You have macros, and then you have arc start, arc end. Those will do the exact same thing. So this is the same thing, just that I changed the name. But apart from that, it's the same. And you have spray on, spray off if you want to do some painting. That will kind of blow a novel on your surface. Okay, now we have one here left to do. So I'm gonna go utilities and then curve follow project. I'm going to call this one curve rectangle. Doesn't matter much, in fact. And here, let's go and we say that we want to select curve here. And you see, when I bring my mouse on top of a curve, it kind of select a bunch of points, kind of a section of the curve. That's great, but that means that I absolutely need to start from one end or the other of that line, which can be problematic. So maybe I want to start right in the middle here. I don't want to start at the end. So what I can do is simply right click the curve here, and you have split curve and different options. So in this case, I'm going to use split curve in half. We're going to talk about that in the next section specifically. In fact, no, in 2 or 3 sections. But anyway, the point is that we will cover that more in details. But here, what I'm going to do is simply use split curve in half. That will give me 2 sections of the curve. So I can go select curve, select that section here, auto select all, click done. And now I have a starting and finishing point here. So I can right click, more option, copy settings, right click, more option, paste settings, update, right click, show instruction, and then run that program here. And we have our path following. By the way, those little dots are quite computer intensive if you add a lot and if your computer is not that good. So just if you feel like you're having some slowdowns, that's kind of normal, and you can just not put those dots. So like I said, those are just there to look pretty, but they have no, let's say, actual functionality. By the way, if you want to clean all those dots, you can just press escape and it will clean them. So that's cool. In the next video, we will cover optimization parameters, so how RoboDK avoids singularity, joint limits, range limits, and how to deal with the starting point and the transition between subprogram like we just created right now. So that's it.